Daeho Kim walked into the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. His hands shook a little as he held the papers. This was the third time Earth had asked for basic trading rights. The third time humans had come here asking for a fair chance. Topper Hall was huge. The ceiling went up so high that Daeho could not see the top. Strange beings sat in floating chairs all around him. Some looked like giant insects with many arms. Others were made of what looked like living crystal that sparked with light. Some were just balls of energy that moved and talked without any body at all. Daeho had spent months learning their languages. He had studied their customs. He wanted to do everything right. Earth needed this. Humans needed a place in the galaxy. Honored council members, Daeho began. His voice echoed in the vast space. I come before you again to ask for fair treatment. Earth wants to trade with your worlds. We want to share what we have learned. We want to be part of your community. A sound like breaking glass filled the hall. It took Daeho a moment to realize the crystal beings were laughing. The insect-like creatures made clicking sounds with their mouths. Even the energy beings flashed in patterns that seemed mocking. Speaker Thexulan rose from his chair. He had 6 arms and skin like blue metal. His 4 eyes looked down at Daeho with clear disgust. Little human, he said in a voice like grinding stone. You come here again with your simple words and simple ideas. Your people still burn chemicals to fly between stars. You are children playing with fire. Daeho felt heat rise in his face, but he kept his voice calm. We may be new to space travel, but we learn fast. Our scientists have made great discoveries. Our people work hard. We only ask for a chance to prove ourselves. Prove yourselves? The speaker's laugh was like metal scraping metal. Your world is a death planet. You evolved in violence and chaos. You know nothing of civilization. You have no place among thinking beings. More laughter filled the hall. Daeho looked around at the alien faces. Some looked bored. Others looked amused. None looked interested in what Earth had to offer. Far across the galaxy, Captain Bo-Ra Lee stood on the Bridge of Souls. Pride. Her ship floated at the edge of human space, watching alien vessels pass by without stopping. Bo-Ra had been trying to make contact with other species for 2 years. Most ignored her completely. The few who answered told her to go away. Captain, said her first officer, another ship just passed us. Same as always. They won't even respond to our signals. Bo-Ra nodded. She had expected this, but it still hurt. Keep trying, she said. Someone will talk to us eventually. She hoped she was right. Back on Earth, Dr. Minho Park sat in his office reading reports from the Galactic Council. Each report was full of insults and dismissals. The aliens called humans primitive and dangerous. They said Earth was too violent to join civilized society. Minho made careful notes about each alien species. He wrote down their strengths and weaknesses. He studied their ships and their weapons. He learned about their governments and their armies. Earth's leaders said this was for peaceful contact, but Minho knew better. Information was power, and humans needed all the power they could get. The Dominion of Kerthak controlled almost half of known space. Their ships were huge and powerful. Their soldiers were trained from birth to fight. They believed might made right, and they had might. The Spiral Federation was smaller but smarter. They used technology and politics instead of pure force. They controlled trade routes and information networks. They were the ones who decided which species could join the galactic community. The smaller powers fought each other for scraps. They formed alliances that changed every few years. They were weak alone, but dangerous when they worked together. All of them looked down on humans. Admiral Jiwoo Choi sat in her office under the mountains near Seoul. Around her, screens showed ships being built in secret bases around the solar system. Earth was not as helpless as the aliens thought. Humans had been preparing for this moment for decades. How many ships do we have ready? She asked her aide. 200 combat vessels, Admiral. Another 50 will be ready next month. Jiwoo nodded. It was not enough to fight the galaxy, but it was a start. The aliens thought humans were weak because they used simple technology. They did not understand that simple could be effective. Human ships were smaller and faster than alien vessels. Human weapons were designed for maximum damage. Human soldiers trained for the kind of brutal warfare that only a death world could teach. But Admiral Jiwoo hoped they would never need to use these ships. She hoped diplomacy would work. At a trading station near the edge of human space, Hyun-woo Nam watched alien customs officials destroy his cargo. They wore environmental suits and handled his goods like they were made of poison. "Contamination risk," said the lead official, a creature that looked like a walking tree. "Death world products are not safe for civilized beings." Hyun-woo wanted to argue. His cargo was simple manufactured goods, tools, electronics, art objects, nothing dangerous, nothing that could hurt anyone. But he had learned not to fight. Fighting only made things worse. "I understand," he said quietly. "May I ask what contamination you found?" "Your presence is contamination enough," the official replied. "Deathworlders carry diseases of the mind. Violence and chaos follow you everywhere." This was the 15th time this year that human cargo had been destroyed for contamination. Hyun-woo knew it was not about disease. It was about keeping humans poor and isolated. He watched his goods being burned and felt anger growing in his chest. Someday, he thought, things would be different. Someday, the aliens would regret treating humans this way. Back in the council hall, Dae-ho Kim was finishing his speech. He had tried to be polite. He had offered friendship and cooperation. He had promised that humans would follow galactic law and respect alien customs. The response was the same as always. "Your request is denied," Speaker Theksulan announced. "Earth is not ready for membership in the galactic community. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when your species has learned to control its violent nature, we might consider your application again." Dae-ho bowed politely. "Thank you for your time, honored Speaker. Earth will continue to work toward the day when we might be worthy of your consideration." But inside, Dae-ho felt something cold and hard growing. He had tried to be diplomatic. He had followed every rule and custom. He had been patient and respectful, and they had laughed at him. As Dae-ho left the council hall, he sent a message back to Earth. The message was simple. Diplomacy has failed again. They will not listen to words. On Earth, Admiral Jiwoo Choi received the message and smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had been expecting bad news and was almost relieved to receive it. "Increase production," she ordered. "Double the training schedules. If they want to judge us by our nature as a death world species, then let them learn what that really means." The galaxy thought humans were weak because they asked politely for what they wanted. They would learn that politeness was a choice, not a weakness. And when humans stopped choosing to be polite, the galaxy would understand what a real death world species could do when it stopped holding back. But that day had not come yet. For now, humans would continue to try diplomacy. They would continue to be patient and respectful. They would continue to build their ships in secret and wait for the day when patience ran out. So Young Kang stared at the screen in disbelief. Her design was right there, displayed for all the galaxy to see. But the name on the patent was not hers. It belonged to Dr. Zilmorian of the Crystal Collective. "This is impossible," she whispered. "I created this design. I spent 3 years working on it. Her faster-than-light communication device could send messages across the galaxy in seconds instead of months. It was her life's work." She had shared the basic principles with alien scientists during a conference, hoping to build cooperation between species. Now those same aliens were claiming they had invented it. So Young's assistant, Tae-ho, looked over her shoulder at the screen. "They say humans are too primitive to understand advanced communication theory. They claim we must have stolen the idea from ancient alien ruins. Ancient ruins that somehow contained my exact mathematical formulas?" So Young's voice was bitter. "Even the power source calculations are identical to what I submitted last year." She had filed her patent with the Galactic Office 3 months before the Crystal Collective. She had documentation proving every step of her research. She had witnesses who could testify to her work. None of it mattered. The Galactic Patent Office had ruled in favor of the aliens without even looking at Earth's evidence. The decision was simple. Humans were too young as a species to create such advanced technology. Therefore, they must have stolen it or found it somewhere. "What do we do now?" Tae-ho asked. So Young was quiet for a long moment. Then she opened a new file on her computer. "We make something they can't steal," she said. "Something so far beyond their understanding that they won't even know what it is." Across the galaxy, Colonel Tae-min Yoon was having a very different kind of problem. He stood on the bridge of his rescue ship, watching the planet New Busan through the viewing screen. Somewhere down there, 3,000 human colonists were being held as slaves. "Sir, we have visual confirmation," reported Lieutenant Mi-jin Park. "The Karthek raiders have them working in the mining camps, men, women, and children." Taemin's hands formed fists. The Karthek were a violent species that captured other beings to use as workers. They had attacked New Busan 3 weeks ago when the colony's defenses were down for maintenance. "Can we take them?" Taemin asked. "Yes, sir. The raiders only have 2 ships in orbit. We can disable them easily." Taemin was about to give the order when his communications officer spoke up. "Sir, incoming message from the Galactic Council. They're ordering us to withdraw immediately." The main screen changed to show a Spiral Federation official. The alien looked like a large octopus with too many eyes. "Colonel Yoon, you are in violation of galactic law. This system is under Karthek jurisdiction. Any military action would be considered an act of war." "Those are human citizens being enslaved," Taemin replied. "We have the right to protect our people. According to galactic law, the Karthek have salvage rights to anything found in their territory. The humans were found there, so they belong to the Karthek now. Found there? They were colonists. They were living there. The Karthek claim they were trespassers. The Council has ruled this an internal matter. You have 1 hour to leave the system or face sanctions against all of Earth." The transmission ended. Taemin stared at the empty screen, feeling rage build inside him like a fire. "Sir?" Lieutenant Mi-jin asked quietly. "What are your orders?" Taemin was quiet for a long time. He thought about the 3,000 humans working in the mines below. He thought about the children who had been born free and were now slaves. He thought about his orders from Earth to avoid conflict at all costs. "We withdraw," he said finally. "But we remember. We remember everything." On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Dae-ho Kim was presenting evidence to the Human Rights Committee. The committee was made up of 5 alien species, all of whom looked bored, as Dae-ho showed them examples of discrimination against humans. "In the past year," Dae-ho said, "human ships have been denied docking rights at 47 stations. Human traders have had their goods destroyed without cause 31 times. Human colonists have been enslaved or murdered on 8 different worlds." Committee Chairman Vex Tanis, a being made of living crystal, flickered with what might have been annoyance. "Ambassador Kim, you continue to misunderstand the nature of sentient rights. These protections apply only to fully civilized species. Humans are sentient. We think, we feel, we create art and literature and science. You also evolved on what you call a death world. Your planet has extreme gravity, violent weather, and dangerous predators. Your evolution was shaped by constant warfare and survival instincts. This makes you inherently unstable and unsuitable for civilized society." Dr. Yoonji Lee, sitting behind Dae-ho, leaned forward. She had been studying galactic law for years, learning every rule and precedent. "Chairman Vex Tanis, could you define what makes a world suitable for producing civilized species?" The crystal being flickered again. "Stable climate, peaceful evolution, harmony with nature, species that develop through cooperation rather than competition." "And yet," Dr. Yoonji said, pulling out a data pad, "I have found records of 3 other species that met those exact criteria. The Melok were peaceful traders who evolved on a garden world. The Vithkai were philosophers and artists from a planet with perfect weather. The Zendal were a collective consciousness that never knew war." "What is your point, Dr. Lee?" "My point is that all 3 of those species were destroyed or enslaved within 50 years of joining the galactic community. Their peaceful nature made them easy targets. The galaxy's laws protect only those strong enough to protect themselves." The committee members exchanged glances. Chairman Vex Tanis was quiet for a moment. "That is an unfortunate coincidence, but it does not change the fact that Death World species are dangerous." "Dangerous to whom?" Dr. Unji asked. Dangerous to peaceful species who cannot defend themselves? Or dangerous to predator species who prefer easy prey? The hearing ended with the same result as always. Humans were too dangerous to be given. Full rights, but too weak to demand them. They existed in a gap between protection and power, belonging to neither category. Captain Young-Soo Park was learning this lesson firsthand. His merchant ship, Incheon Dawn, had been boarded by hegemony forces for the third time this month. The aliens wore full environmental suits and carried weapons designed to kill humans efficiently. "Cargo inspection," announced the boarding leader, a reptilian creature with scales like black metal. "All humans remain in this compartment." Young-Soo's crew huddled together as the aliens searched their ship. They had done nothing wrong. Their cargo was legal and properly documented, but that did not matter. After 2 hours, the boarding team returned. Their leader looked disappointed. "Your cargo is clean," he said, "but your crew smells wrong. Deathworlders carry diseases we cannot detect. We must take precautions." The aliens began beating Young-Soo's crew with shock rods. The weapons were set to cause pain without permanent damage, but the message was clear. Humans were not welcome here. Young-Soo tried to protect his youngest crew member, a woman named Hai-Wan, who had just joined his ship. An alien struck him across the face with a metal rod, opening a cut above his eye. "Stay down, Deathworlder," the alien said. "Learn your place." When the boarding team finally left, Young-Soo helped his crew to their feet. Most were bruised and shaken, but alive. Hai-Wan was crying quietly in a corner. "Why do they hate us so much?" she asked. Young-Soo did not have a good answer. He helped her stand and checked her injuries. "Because they can," he said finally. "Because no one stops them." But even as he said it, Young-Soo was thinking about the hidden weapons compartments in his ship. All human vessels carried them now, despite galactic law. Earth's government had quietly authorized the modifications after too many ships had been lost to pirates and accidents. Someday, Young-Soo thought, someone would try to board his ship and find out that humans could fight back. He looked forward to that day. On Earth, Prime Minister Hae-Jin's song read reports from across human space. Every day brought new insults, new attacks, new evidence that the galaxy saw humans as less than people. "How many more incidents this week?" she asked her aide. 17 ships harassed or damaged, Madam Prime Minister. 2 colonies threatened with orbital bombardment unless they paid protection fees to local warlords. 1 diplomatic mission beaten and expelled from a station. Hae-Jin sighed. She had hoped diplomacy would work. She had believed that patience and good faith would eventually win the galaxy's respect. She was beginning to understand that she had been wrong. "What is the status of Project Silent Thunder?" she asked. "Ahead of schedule, Madam Prime Minister. Admiral Choi says we could be ready to implement in 6 months if necessary." Hae-Jin nodded. Project Silent Thunder was Earth's secret backup plan. Weapons platforms disguised as communication satellites. Shipyards hidden in asteroid fields. Fleets of warships built in the outer solar system where alien sensors could not detect them. It was expensive and dangerous. If the aliens discovered it, they would have an excuse to destroy Earth completely. But every day brought new evidence that they might try to destroy Earth anyway. "Continue the project," Hae-Jin said, "but maintain diplomatic efforts. We are not ready to abandon peace yet." "Yes, Madam Prime Minister." "Should I schedule another?" General Woo Jin Kim watched the screens in horror. His homeworld of New Seoul was burning. Bright flashes of light marked where orbital weapons struck the surface. Each flash meant thousands of his people were dying. "Sir, we need to move closer," said Captain Do Hyun Lee from the bridge of their observation ship. "Maybe we can help evacuate some civilians." "Negative," Woo Jin said, his voice tight with pain. "Our orders are to observe only. Earth cannot risk a war over 1 colony." But this was not just any colony. This was where Woo Jin had been born, where his wife and children lived, where 50,000 humans had built a new life among the stars. The Dominion of Courteous had attacked without warning. Their massive ships had appeared in orbit and immediately began bombing civilian targets. Schools, hospitals, homes, nothing was spared. "General," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Dominion fleet." "Put it through." The main screen showed Admiral Courteous, a creature that looked like a cross between a shark and a spider. His voice was cold and mechanical. "Attention, human observers. Your colony has been developing biological weapons in violation of galactic law. We are conducting a preemptive peacekeeping operation to prevent these weapons from being used against innocent species." "That's a lie!" Wu Jin shouted. "New Sol is a farming colony. They grow food, not weapons." "All Death World colonies are weapons factories," the alien replied. "Your very presence is a threat to galactic peace. Consider this a warning to your species." The transmission ended. Wu Jin stared at the screen as another flash of light marked the death of more civilians. His hands shook with rage and helplessness. In his quarters that night, Wu Jin tried to contact his family. The communication channels were dead. The planetary network had been destroyed in the first wave of attacks. He did not know if his wife and children were alive or dead. He would carry that uncertainty for the rest of his life. Ambassador Daeho. Kim had never run so fast in his life. He burst into the Galactic Council chambers carrying a datapad full of evidence from New Sol, images of burning cities, records of civilian casualties, proof that the colony had no weapons of any kind. "Emergency session," he called out. "I demand an emergency session of the Council." Speaker Thexu Lan looked annoyed at the interruption. The Council had been discussing trade agreements for luxury goods. "Ambassador Kim, you cannot simply burst in here demanding attention. There are proper procedures." 50,000 civilians are dead," Daeho shouted. "The Dominion of Kurthak has committed genocide against an unarmed human colony." The hall fell silent. Several alien representatives checked their datapads, probably reading news reports about the attack. Others whispered among themselves. "Hi." Councillor Thekmaran, a being that looked like a giant jellyfish made of metal, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "Ambassador Kim, we are aware of the recent military action in the New Sol system. The Dominion has provided evidence that the colony was developing biological weapons." Daeho held up his datapad. "I have complete records from the colony, agricultural data, population records, economic reports. New Sol was a farming world. They grew crops to feed other human colonies. There were no weapons labs, no military installations, no threat to anyone." "The Dominion's evidence suggests otherwise," Thekmaran replied calmly. "They detected atmospheric traces of engineered bacteria that could be weaponized." "Engineered bacteria used to improve crop growth," Daeho said. "Agricultural enhancement, not weapons. Any agricultural expert can confirm this." He looked around the hall at the alien faces. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked skeptical. Most looked bored. "Furthermore," Daeho continued, "even if there had been weapons development, which there was not, that does not justify the deliberate targeting of civilian populations. Orbital bombardment of cities is a war crime under galactic law." Speaker Thexulan's 4 eyes focused on Daeho with what might have been pity. "Ambassador Kim, you continue to misunderstand the nature of galactic law. The Dominion of Kurthak acted within their rights as a major power to neutralize a potential threat." "A potential threat? Children playing in schoolyards were a potential threat?" "Death World children grow up to be Death World adults," Thekmaran said. "The Dominion made a difficult but necessary decision to prevent future violence. The Council voted on a resolution condemning the attack. The final result was a formal reprimand to the Dominion, a diplomatic slap on the wrist that meant absolutely nothing. Dr. Subin Choi had survived the attack on New Sol by pure chance. She had been in an underground storage facility when the bombing began. When she finally reached the surface, her world was gone. Her children had been at school when the first bombs fell. Her husband had been at work in the city center. The school was a crater now. The city center was a field of glass. 3 days after the attack, Subin stood before the Galactic Council's Human Rights Committee. Her clothes were still dirty from digging through rubble looking for survivors. Her hands were bandaged from moving debris with her bare fingers. "I watched my children die," she said in a voice that barely worked. "I watched my neighbors burn. I watched a city of 50,000 people disappear in flashes of light." Committee Chairman Vex Tanis flickered with what might have been discomfort. "Dr. Choi, the committee extends its sympathy for your loss. However, This tragedy was the result of your colony's illegal weapons development. We had no weapons, Subin screamed. We were farmers. We grew food. The Dominion's investigation found clear evidence of biological weapons research. Subin pulled out a data pad with shaking hands. This is my research. I was the head of agricultural science for the colony. Every project, every experiment, every bacteria strain we developed, it's all here. Crop enhancement, soil improvement, pest resistance, nothing that could hurt anyone. She transmitted the data to the committee's computers. Look at it. Read the research. See for yourself that we were telling the truth. The aliens looked at their screens for a few minutes. Their faces showed no emotion as they reviewed years of agricultural data. Dr. Choi, Chairman Vextanis said finally, your emotional display is understandable given your loss. However, the committee must rely on official investigations by recognized galactic authorities. You mean you're going to believe the people who murdered my children instead of the evidence I'm showing you? The Dominion of Kurthak is a respected member of the galactic community with centuries of experience in security matters. Your colony was a recent human settlement with no established credibility. Subin stared at the alien in disbelief. Credibility? I'm showing you the actual research data, which could have been falsified after the fact to hide evidence of weapons. Development. I was there. I lived there. I know what we were doing. You are emotionally compromised and therefore not a reliable witness. The hearing ended with no action taken. Dr. Subin Choi was thanked for her emotional testimony and escorted out of the chamber. Captain Miran Jung had tried to help the survivors. Her ship, the Soul Light, was loaded with medical supplies and emergency food for the refugees from New Seoul. But coalition forces had blockaded the system. This area is under quarantine, announced the coalition commander, a being that looked like a walking tree with too many branches. No unauthorized vessels permitted. I'm carrying humanitarian aid, Miran replied. Medical supplies for the survivors. Unacceptable. Deathworlders carry diseases that could spread to other systems. The quarantine must be maintained. These people are dying. They need food and medicine. The coalition will provide appropriate aid to any legitimate refugees after proper decontamination procedures. Miran tried to force her way through the blockade. Her ship was fast and well-armed for a merchant vessel, but the coalition had 3 warships waiting for her. They disabled her engines with precise shots and boarded her ship. Miran and her crew were arrested for violating quarantine protocols and thrown into a prison facility where they would spend the next 2 years. The medical supplies were destroyed as contaminated materials. The food was incinerated as a biological hazard. The survivors of New Seoul would receive no aid from the galactic community. Admiral Seung-ho Lee sat in his office on Earth reading classified reports that made his blood run cold. New Seoul was not the first time this had happened. In the past century, 12 other minor species had suffered similar fates. Each time, a major galactic power had found an excuse to attack. Each time, the Galactic Council had accepted the excuse without question. The Yithlan had been developing telepathic weapons. Their homeworld was now a collection of glass craters. The Mordek had been planning terrorist attacks. Their entire species had been enslaved and sold as workers. The Veltar had been spreading dangerous ideologies. Their culture had been systematically destroyed and their children raised by other species. Every single one of these species had been peaceful. Every single one had tried to join the galactic community through diplomacy. Every single one had been destroyed the moment they became inconvenient. Admiral, his aide said, Ambassador Kim is requesting permission to make one final diplomatic appeal. Seung-ho thought about it for a long moment. He thought about the hidden fleets in the outer system. He thought about the weapons platforms disguised as satellites. He thought. Admiral Ji-woo Choi stood in the command center deep beneath Seoul's mountains. Around her, hundreds of screens showed what looked like peaceful human space. Communication satellites, mining stations, research outposts, all the normal things a young species might build as they explore the galaxy. But Ji-woo knew better. She knew what those installations really were. Begin Phase 1, she said quietly. Across human space, the transformation began. Communication satellites unfolded like deadly flowers, revealing weapons platforms that could crack planets. Mining Stations opened hidden bays filled with warships. Research outposts activated shields and weapon systems that had been disguised as scientific equipment. In the asteroid belt around Earth's sun, chunks of rock split apart to reveal massive shipyards. Ships that looked like simple cargo haulers shed their outer hulls to show the warships underneath. Bases that had been hidden in gas-giant atmospheres rose to the surface, bristling with weapons. Captain Gunwoo Park watched from the bridge of the Sejong the Great as his ship emerged from its hiding place inside a dead moon. The Dreadnought was 3 kilometers long and armed with fusion cannons that could melt continents. Its shields could survive the explosion of a star. "All systems online, Captain," reported his weapons officer. "Stealth fields deactivated. We're broadcasting on all frequencies." Gunwoo smiled. For 20 years, his ship had been hidden, disguised as a mining operation. For 20 years, he had waited for this moment. "Signal the fleet," he said. "All ships, begin deployment. Show them what Earth has really been building." Throughout human space, the truth revealed itself. What the aliens had thought was a weak, scattered collection of primitive colonies was actually a carefully planned military network. Every human world was a fortress. Every human ship was a weapon. Every human station was a gun pointed at the galaxy's heart. Colonel Eugene Nam led the first strike against a Kurthak outpost on the edge of Dominion space. His soldiers moved through the alien base like a force of nature. Their power armor turned them into walking tanks that could survive in the vacuum of space or the heart of a star. The Kurthak defenders tried to fight back, but they had never faced anything like humans in combat. The aliens were strong and vicious, but they had evolved on worlds where survival was easy. They had never learned the kind of brutal efficiency that only a death world could teach. "Targets eliminated," Eugene reported as his soldiers secured the base. "No human casualties. Enemy resistance was minimal." That was the word that would define the early battles, minimal. The galaxy's armies had been designed to fight other civilized species. They were not ready for humans. Dr. Changmin watched from his laboratory on Earth as his creations spread through the galaxy. He had spent decades studying alien biology, learning the weaknesses of every major species. Now those weaknesses would be their downfall. The viruses he had created were invisible and unstoppable. They spread through the galaxy's trade networks like wildfire. Each one was designed for a specific alien species, harmless to everyone else, but devastating to its intended target. The Spiral Federation's leaders began dying of organ failure. The Crystal Collective found their bodies turning to dust. The Hive species discovered that their queens could no longer reproduce. "Phase 2 is proceeding ahead of schedule," Chang Min reported to Admiral Choi. "Alien governments are beginning to collapse. Their medical systems cannot even identify what is killing them." The beauty of it was that the aliens had brought this on themselves. Their own refusal to implement proper quarantine procedures had allowed the viruses to spread unchecked. The same arrogance that had led them to dismiss human contamination was now destroying their civilizations. Engineer Hyejin Yu demonstrated humanity's real technological advantages from the command ship Incheon Rising. The aliens had always assumed that humans were primitive because they used simple, reliable technology. They had never imagined that simple could be devastatingly effective. Human quantum-entangled communication networks allowed their fleets to coordinate instantly across galactic distances, while alien admirals were still trying to send messages. To their scattered forces, human commanders were adapting their strategies in real time. Nanite clouds released by human ships began eating enemy vessels from the inside out. The microscopic machines could disassemble alien technology at the molecular level, turning proud warships into clouds of atoms in minutes. AI systems that the aliens had dismissed as crude pattern-matching programs proved capable of predicting enemy movements with terrifying accuracy. Human fleets arrived at enemy positions before the aliens even knew they were coming. "Sir," Hyejin's assistant reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 47 alien fleets. They want to know our terms." Hyejin smiled coldly. "Tell them to ask Admiral Choi. I'm just here to demonstrate that primitive human technology works just fine." The galaxy was learning that there was nothing primitive about human warfare. Humans had evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them. They had learned to be efficient, ruthless, and absolutely merciless when their survival was at stake. Fleet Admiral Courteous of the Spiral Federation tried desperately to coordinate a response to the human attacks. His forces outnumbered the humans 10-1, but they could not fight what they could not find. Human fleets appeared out of nowhere, struck with devastating force, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Their ships were faster than anything in the galaxy. Their weapons cut through alien defenses like paper. "How are they doing this?" Courteous demanded of his intelligence chief. "Where are they getting these ships?" "Sir, our analysis suggests they have been building this fleet for decades. Everything we thought was civilian infrastructure was actually military preparation." "That's impossible. We monitored their activities constantly." "Yes, sir. But we only looked for what we expected to see. We expected a primitive species with simple technology. We never considered that they might be deliberately deceiving us." Courteous stared at the tactical display showing human forces throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked the positions of human fleets, and there were far too many of them. "How many ships do they have?" "Unknown, sir. Our estimates keep increasing. Current projection is at least 5,000 combat vessels, possibly more." 5,000? From a species that supposedly just learned to build starships? "Sir, I think we may have misunderstood humanity from the beginning." The realization hit Courteous like a physical blow. The humans had not been trying to join galactic civilization. They had been studying it, learning its weaknesses, preparing for war. Every diplomatic mission had been a scouting expedition. Every trade negotiation had been intelligence gathering. Every request for fair treatment had been a test to see how the galaxy would respond to a threat. And the galaxy had failed that test completely. Ambassador Dae-ho Kim stood before what remained of the Galactic Council. Half the seats were empty. Their occupants were dead or fleeing. The other half were filled with aliens who looked terrified. "Honored council members," Dae-ho said in the same polite tone he had always used, "Earth has a message for the galaxy." Speaker Thexolon, who had once laughed at human requests for fairness, now trembled as he spoke. "Ambassador Kim, surely we can reach some accommodation. The Council is prepared to discuss Earth's concerns." "Oh, but we are discussing them," Dae-ho replied with a smile. "We are having the most productive conversation we have ever had. For the first time, you are actually listening to what humans have to say." "Please, Ambassador, there must be a peaceful solution to this conflict." Dae-ho's smile never wavered. "Peace? But Speaker Thexolon, you taught us that peace is for the weak. You taught us that might makes right. You taught us that the strong rule and the weak serve." He gestured to the tactical displays showing human fleets throughout the galaxy. "We are simply following the lessons you gave us. Earth is strong now. The galaxy is weak. According to your own rules, this means we rule and you serve. But surely you don't mean to destroy all alien life." "Destroy?" Dae-ho looked shocked. "Speaker, you wound me. Humans are not destroyers. We are builders. We build better worlds, better societies, better governments." He paused, and his smile became sharp as a knife. "We just have to clear away the old broken systems first." The transmission ended. Throughout the galaxy, human fleets continued their advance. Alien governments collapsed. Alien armies surrendered. Alien civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia found themselves begging for mercy from the species they had dismissed as primitive. On Earth, Admiral Ji-woo Choi watched the reports flow in. Every hour brought news of new victories, new surrenders, new alien leaders pleading for terms. "Admiral," her aide reported, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Dominion of Courteous. Admiral Courteous wants to discuss terms for ending hostilities." Ji-woo laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "The same Admiral Courteous who bombed New Sol?" "Yes, ma'am." "Tell him that Earth will accept his surrender. Tell him to present himself at the coordinates I'm transmitting. Tell him to bring every officer who participated in the attack on New Sol." "And if he refuses?" Ji-woo looked at the tactical display showing human fleets surrounding the Dominion's capital system. "Then remind him that his homeworld has 40 billion civil—" General Woo-jin Kim stood on the surface of New Sol for the first time since the bombing. The city he had grown up in was gone, replaced by a field of black glass that stretched to the horizon. but humans were already building something new on top of the ruins. Memorial towers rose from the ground where schools and hospitals had once stood. Each tower contained the names of every person who had died in the attack. At the center of the memorial complex, a massive statue showed a human child reaching for the stars. "Sir," said Captain Do-hyun Lee, "the Dominion prisoners have arrived." Woo Jin turned to see a line of Kurthak officers being led in chains across the memorial ground. At the front of the line was Admiral Kurthax himself, the alien who had ordered the bombing of New Seoul. The alien looked smaller now, without his fancy uniform and weapons. His shark-like face showed fear as he was forced to walk across the graves of his victims. "Admiral Kurthax," Woo Jin said as the alien was brought before him. "Welcome to New Seoul. I wanted you to see what your preemptive peacekeeping operation accomplished." The alien's voice was barely a whisper. "General Kim, I was following orders. The Dominion Council decided that your colony was a threat." "A threat?" Woo Jin gestured to the memorial towers around them. "These children were a threat to your mighty empire?" "We believed, we were told. You were told that Death Worlders are dangerous. You were told that humans cannot be trusted. You were told that might makes right." Woo Jin walked closer to the alien. "You know what? You were absolutely correct." Admiral Kurthax looked confused. "I don't understand. Humans are dangerous, Admiral. We are very, very dangerous. You just made the mistake of thinking that dangerous meant evil. Now you're learning the difference." Around the memorial ground, human soldiers stood guard. They wore black armor that made them look like death itself. Their weapons could kill a Kurthak warrior from orbit if necessary. "What happens to us now?" Kurthax asked. "You will stand trial for war crimes," Woo Jin replied. "You will face the families of your victims. You will be judged by human law." "And then?" Woo Jin was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his wife and children, whose bodies had never been found in the ruins. He thought about 50,000 innocent people who had died because aliens thought humans were less than people. Then you will learn what human justice looks like. Captain So-ra Kim was hunting war criminals across the galaxy. Her ship, the Soul Vengeance, carried a list of every alien officer who had participated in attacks on human civilians. One by one, she was finding them and bringing them to trial. "Target acquired," her weapons officer reported. "The Kurthak cruiser Deathbringer, commanded by Captain Vexmore." So-ra checked her files. Captain Vexmore had commanded one of the ships that bombed New Seoul. He was responsible for destroying the children's hospital. "Signal the enemy ship," So-ra ordered. "Tell them to surrender immediately or be destroyed." "Captain," came the reply. From the alien ship, "We are protected by the Galactic Convention on the Treatment of Prisoners. You cannot simply execute us." "Captain Vexmore," So-ra said with a cold smile, "the Galactic Convention only applies to civilized species. You taught us that humans don't qualify." She paused and let that sink in. "So by your own rules, you have no protection from us. Surrender now or be atomized. You have 30 seconds to decide." The alien ship surrendered immediately. Dr. Jae-hyun Moon walked through the re-education camps where alien populations were learning to live under human rule. The camps were clean and efficient, with comfortable housing and adequate food. But they were still prisons. "How are they adapting?" asked his assistant, Dr. Soo-jin Park. "Better than expected," Jae-hyun replied. "Most species seem almost relieved to have someone else making decisions for them. Centuries of galactic politics have left them exhausted." They stopped at an observation window overlooking a Spiral Federation work group. The octopus-like aliens were learning to operate human machinery under the supervision of human guards. "The key is consistency," Jae-hyun explained. "They get fair treatment as long as they follow the rules. They get extra privileges for good behavior. They get punishment for resistance. And if they refuse to cooperate, then they get transferred to the minimum subsistence facilities. Enough food and shelter to survive, nothing more. Most choose cooperation." Dr. Soo-jin looked uncomfortable. "Doctor, are we really any better than they were?" Jae-hyun considered the question seriously. "We don't kill civilians for sport. We don't enslave children. We don't commit genocide for profit. So yes, we are better." He paused and watched the aliens working below. "But we are not saints, Dr. Park. We are conquerors. The galaxy forced us to become what they feared we were. The only difference is that we are competent conquerors. Colonel Min Su Jung was establishing human administration on the former Karthak world of Dominion Prime. The planet's government had collapsed within hours of the human invasion. Now it was his job to build something new from the wreckage. Sir, his aide reported, the local population is requesting permission to resume commercial activities. Denied, Min Su said without looking up from his reports. All economic activity goes through human oversight until further notice. But sir, they're saying their families will starve without trade income. Then they should have thought of that before they supported a government that murdered human children. Min Su's efficiency was legendary throughout human space. He could organize the administration of an entire world in weeks. Food distribution, medical care, education, law enforcement, everything ran like clockwork under his control. The aliens found human bureaucracy both terrifying and impressive. Human administrators never took bribes. They never played favorites. They followed the rules exactly, without exception. For species that had lived under corrupt alien governments for centuries, it was a shocking change. Sir, a Karthak civilian said during one of Min Su's weekly meetings, my son was arrested for violating curfew, but he was helping an injured neighbor. Was he outside during restricted hours? Yes, but then he violated curfew. The penalty is community service. No exceptions. But the circumstances. The law does not care about circumstances. It cares about actions. Your son performed an action that violated human law. He will be punished according to human law. The alien looked frustrated. This is not how justice worked under our old government. No, Min Su agreed. Under your old government, justice depended on who you knew and how much you could pay. Under human government, justice depends on what you do. He leaned forward and fixed the alien with a steady stare. Would you prefer to return to the old system? The alien was quiet for a long moment. No, sir. Admiral Yejin Cho commanded the fleets that were systematically destroying alien military capabilities throughout the galaxy. Ancient shipyards that had built warships for 1,000 years were reduced to scrap metal in hours. Weapons factories that had armed entire empires were turned to dust. Admiral, her intelligence officer reported, we've identified another hidden weapons cache in the Vegan system. The Crystal Collective was storing antimatter warheads in an asteroid field. Destroy it, Yejin ordered. All of it. She watched. On the main screen as human bombers reduced the weapons cache to energy and vapor. Another potential threat to human rule eliminated. Ma'am, this was enough firepower to destroy a dozen star systems, which is exactly why it had to be destroyed. The galaxy has proven that it cannot be trusted with such weapons. Yejin had been a peaceful explorer before the war. She had believed in diplomacy and cooperation between species. Now she believed in human supremacy and alien disarmament. Admiral, some of our officers are asking about the morality of completely disarming alien civilizations. Yejin turned to face her intelligence officer. Officer Kim, do you remember the massacre of New Sol? Yes, ma'am. Do you remember how the Galactic Council responded to that massacre? They gave the Dominion a formal reprimand, ma'am. A formal reprimand for 50,000 dead civilians. That is what alien morality looks like. She gestured to the tactical display showing human fleets throughout the galaxy. Our morality says that species who commit genocide should not be allowed to keep the weapons that make genocide possible. I prefer our morality. On the former council station, Councillor Thekmaran knelt before Governor Sun-hee Park. The alien who had once dismissed the New Sol massacre as regrettable but necessary was now begging for mercy for his own home world. Governor Park, the alien pleaded, my people had nothing to do with the attacks on human colonies. We are a peaceful species. Sun-hee looked at the data pad in her hands. It contained a complete record of Thekmaran's career in galactic politics. Counselor, Thekmaran, according to my records, you personally voted to deny human requests for protection 47 times. You voted to uphold the slavery of human colonists. You voted to approve the bombing of New Sol. I was following galactic law. Galactic law that you helped write. Galactic law that excluded humans from protection because we evolved on a death world. Sun He set down the datapad and looked at the alien with the same casual indifference. He had once shown to human suffering. Tell me, counselor, what should happen to leaders who support genocide? Governor, please. My world has 40 billion inhabitants. They are innocent. 40 billion? Sun He Seem. Administrator Dong Hyuk Kim walked through the halls of the Terran Galactic Administration Building. 5 years ago, this had been the Galactic Council chambers where aliens had laughed at human requests for fairness. Now it was the center of human power in the galaxy. The changes were obvious everywhere he looked. Where aliens had once sat in floating chairs discussing the oppression of weaker species, human administrators now worked at efficient desks organizing trade routes and resource distribution. The chaotic noise of alien politics had been replaced by the quiet hum of human productivity. Sir, his assistant reported, the quarterly efficiency reports are ready for your review. Dong Hyuk accepted the datapad and smiled as he read the numbers. Food production was up 30% across all sectors. Industrial output had doubled. Crime rates had dropped to nearly zero. Medical care was available to every sentient being in human space. Excellent work, he said. Send these numbers to all sector administrators. I want them to see what proper management can accomplish. The transformation of the galaxy under human rule had been remarkable. What had once been a chaotic collection of competing empires was now a single, efficiently managed civilization. Resources flowed where they were needed. Problems were solved quickly and permanently. Progress was measured and rewarded. Ambassador Su-Min Lee sat in her office reviewing requests from autonomous regions. She had once been a junior diplomat, ignored by alien officials who thought humans were not worth their time. Now she managed relationships with what remained of the galaxy's former great powers. Ambassador, her aide said, the Spiral Federation is requesting permission to increase their manufacturing quotas. Denied, Su-Min replied without hesitation. They exceeded their resource allocation last month. They need to demonstrate better efficiency before we consider expanding their operations. But, Ambassador, they claim their population growth requires increased production. Then they should control their population growth. Human resources are not unlimited. The aide looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, is it really our place to control alien reproduction? Su-Min set down her datapad and looked at her assistant with patience that was clearly forced. Officer Park, do you remember what happened when alien species controlled their own reproduction? They bred armies to conquer their neighbors. They created massive populations that consumed resources faster than planets could replace them. She gestured to the wall display showing peaceful, productive worlds throughout human space. Under human management, every child born is guaranteed food, shelter, education, and medical care. Under alien management, billions starved while their leaders built palaces. But the moral implications are simple. We prevent suffering by preventing the conditions that cause suffering. If that means controlling population growth, then that is what we do. Su-Min's voice became harder. The galaxy had its chance to manage itself responsibly. It chose war, oppression, and waste instead. Now humans make the decisions, and the galaxy prospers. Captain Yongju Park commanded the battlecruiser Admiral Yi Sun-Sin as it patrolled the outer rim of human space. His job was to ensure that no new alien civilizations developed military capabilities that could threaten the human order. Captain, his sensor officer reported, we're detecting a new contact, unknown ship design, approaching from outside the galaxy. Battle stations, Yongju ordered. All weapons powered and ready. The alien ship was clearly advanced, with technology that seemed almost as sophisticated as human designs. But sophistication did not matter when facing human firepower. Captain, they're attempting to communicate. Put them through. The main screen showed an alien that looked like a cross between a spider and a snake. Its voice was translated by the ship's computers. Greetings, unknown vessel. I am Captain Zethkaran of the Zenthari Empire. We come in peace to explore this galaxy and make contact with its inhabitants. Hyungju smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Captain Zethkaran, you are now in human space. All exploration and contact goes through human authorities. Human space? We were told this galaxy was inhabited by many different species. It is. They all live under human rule now. The alien looked confused. I don't understand. Our long-range Surveys showed multiple competing civilizations. Those surveys are 5 years out of date. The situation has changed. Yongju checked his weapons status. Everything was ready if the aliens decided to be hostile. Captain Zeth Karan, you have 2 options. You can accept escort to the nearest human administrative station for processing, or you can be disabled and taken there by force. Which do you prefer? Processing? What kind of processing? The kind that determines whether your species will be permitted to exist as an autonomous region under human oversight, or whether you will require more direct management. The alien ship's weapons powered up. Hyungju was not surprised. Most new species tried to fight when they first encountered human authority. Captain, the alien said, the Zenthari Empire has conquered a dozen galaxies. We will not submit to a single species from a primitive spiral arm. Famous last words, Yongju said calmly. Fire. The Admiral Yi Sun-sin's weapons tore through the alien ship's defenses like paper. Advanced technology meant nothing against human engineering that had been perfected through decades of total war. The alien ship was disabled in seconds, its crew captured for interrogation and education. Signal Fleet Command, Hyungju ordered. We have first contact with a potential external threat. Recommend immediate investigation of their point of origin. Dr. Ye-Yun Choi studied the cultural changes taking place throughout human space. Her research showed remarkable adaptation by most alien species to life under human rule. The most interesting finding, she told her research team, is that alien populations seem to be healthier and happier under human administration than they were under their own governments. How is that possible? Asked her assistant, Dr. Min-Woo Lee. We conquered them. We destroyed their civilizations. How can they be happier? Because human rule provides something their old governments never did, security and fairness. Dr. Ye-Yun brought up a holographic display showing social indicators across the galaxy. Under alien rule, most individuals lived in constant fear. Fear of war, fear of crime, fear of starvation, fear of their own governments. Under human rule, those fears are gone. But at the cost of freedom. What freedom? The freedom to be oppressed by their own leaders instead of ours? The freedom to watch their children starve while their rulers lived in luxury? Dr. Ye-Yun changed the display to show economic data. Look at these numbers. Income inequality has dropped by 90%. Access to education is universal. Medical care is available to every sentient being. How is this not an improvement? Because it's imposed by force. Everything is imposed by force, Dr. Lee. The only question is whether that force serves the interests of the few or the many. She gestured to images of alien children attending human schools, learning human values alongside human children. These children will grow up never knowing a time when humans weren't in charge. To them, human rule will be natural and normal. In one generation, the galaxy will forget that things were ever different. General In-Ho Nam commanded the Terran Peace Corps, the elite units that maintained order throughout human space. His soldiers were the finest humanity had ever produced, trained from childhood to be perfect instruments of human will. Sir, his aide reported, we're receiving reports of unrest in the former Crystal Collective territories. Some groups are demanding independence. Response time? In-Ho asked. 12 hours for the nearest unit to reach the area. Deploy immediately. Full suppression protocols. The aide hesitated. Sir, the rebels are mostly young adults. Many are barely past adolescence. In-Ho looked at his aide with cold eyes. Sergeant Kim, what is the Peace Corps motto? Courtesy was our first choice. Obedience is your only choice. Exactly. The galaxy had its chance for courtesy. They chose violence instead. Now they get obedience or they get removed. In-Ho pulled up tactical displays showing Peace Corps units throughout the galaxy. Each unit was capable of suppressing an entire planet if necessary. These rebels think they can challenge human authority because they are young and idealistic. They will learn that human authority is not a request. It is a fact of nature like gravity or entropy. Sir, some of our own officers are expressing concerns about the harshness of our methods. Then those officers need to remember what happened to New Seoul. They need to remember what the galaxy was like before human rule brought order. In-Ho stood and walked to the window overlooking the training fields where new Peace Corps units were drilling. We are not peacekeepers, Sergeant. We are peace enforcers. The galaxy will be peaceful because we will eliminate anything that threatens that peace. On the edge of human space, Ambassador Dae-ho Kim met with representatives of the Zenthari Empire. The aliens had arrived with a fleet of warships and demands for tribute from the galaxy's inhabitants. Now they sat in a human conference room looking confused and frightened. "Ambassador Kim," said the lead alien diplomat, a creature that called itself High Chancellor Kethvaran. "Surely we can reach some accommodation. The Zenthari Empire is vast and powerful. We could be valuable allies." Dae-ho smiled the same polite smile he